So as you can see, we're going to have some online chess opportunities, and you can see this is a game that I'm playing against my daughter. You have the ability to chat with your opponent. Great move, Savannah, and click submit. And I can also hide that chat. And what I'm going to do here is just show a little bit about how the game works. You can see here that white has already moved. I'm playing the black side. And let's just take a quick overview of the pieces of chess. The way that you set up a chessboard is you have you're set up on the opposing rows of the chessboard, and you set up all of your pawns, and that's these little things right here. You set them up on the second to last row that's closest to you, and then you put here in opposite order, you put your rook on each corner. This is a rook. You put your knight, which looks like a horse, on each corner. Then you put your bishop, which is next to the knight. Okay, and you have one bishop on the black squares and one bishop on the white squares. And then you put your queen on whatever color square you are. So for instance, I'm playing black. My queen goes on the black square, and you can see over here that the opposing queen goes on the white square, and then the king goes in this position right here. So let's go over quickly the different moves in chess. A pawn is that's the piece that you have the greatest number of, but it's the least powerful and it's the least important piece. So many times you might sacrifice a pawn. So here's an example of how a pawn can move. A pawn can move one space, usually just forward, but on its first move, a pawn can move two spaces. Okay, and right here, so it highlights where I've moved. Now, what's important about a pawn is that pawns can move only forward except to attack. If it was my move right here, I could attack the pawn, the white pawn, and by attacking it, I take it. No piece can occupy the same piece as your opponent's piece. So if I move my pawn over here, then I take over the white pawn. Now in this situation, it's white's move, so white could take my pawn right here. All right, so that's how pawns move. Now let's take a look at some other pieces. Let's take a look at the knight, because the knight has an unusual move, and the knight's move kind of looks like the knight's head. Rather than just moving forward or back, the knight can actually move two spaces and over. You see what I mean by it's sort of like the knight's head? The knight has a long neck and then it kind of curls over. So I can go this way, so 1, 2, and over 1, which gives me, so I've actually moved 3 spaces, or I can go 1, 2, 3, but I'm always going to move 3 spaces. Now what else did you notice? I can actually, the knight is the only piece on the board that can jump over other pieces. So even though I have pieces in front of me here, I can move. And I can also move this way. The knight can move forward or backwards. The pawns can only move forward. Next up that we'll take a look at is the bishop. The bishop is this little pointy head thing right here, and the bishop moves diagonally. So I can move any way on the white space, the white squares that I want. Now I can't move this way because I'm blocked by the pawn, but I can move this way on the white space. The bishop, on the other bishop, I can't move here because I'm blocked by this pawn, but if that pawn wasn't there, then I can move over here, and once I'm here I can move this way, or this way, or this way, or this way. Okay? The queen can move, basically the queen can do what every other piece can do except the knight. So the queen can move diagonally like this, or diagonally like this. It can also move horizontally or vertically, so it can move like this. Now the queen cannot jump over a pawn. So right now I couldn't go this way or this way. I can only go this way. Okay? The rook, I'm going to move the rook. The rook can't jump over a pawn, so the rook right now is blocked. But if the rook was out here, the rook moves not diagonally, but horizontally and vertically. But it can move many spaces. So you can see the only piece that can only move one space most times, remember the pawn can move 2 spaces at the beginning, but the piece that can only move 1 space is the pawn. Everything else can move multiple spaces, except the most important piece on the board, which is the king. The king is the reason for the game. Your job is to protect your king and attack the opponent's king. But the king, even though it's the most powerful piece, it can only move 1 space at a time. Okay? So if the king is right here, it can move here, it can move here, it can move here, it can move backward.